I turned up to Glen Swilly and down in Donegal there, and I thought Wales has bad weather. It was just ridiculous. I was free. I've never been so cold in all my life.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
Hello and welcome along to House of Rugby Ireland here on Joe together with Guinness. I'm Eimear Considine and I'm here as always with Ian Madigan. We've got a great show coming up for you all today. This Friday sees the Autumn Nations Cup kick off with Ireland taking on Wales in the Aviva Stadium in the Guinness Series. We're going to take a look at that game and the tournament in the company of Wales legend Shane Williams. Ian, you are rocking a new lockdown haircut since the last time I saw you.
Yeah, Anna's finest work. Obviously all the barbers are closed here, so I had to make do, and yeah, she gave me a little one step, which I'm delighted with.
Especially for Monday Night Lights, I saw it on the TV. A big weekend of sport. I'm sure we were all busy watching between the rugby, between the GAA, everything. There was a lot of games. Did you happen to see any of those games of the weekend?
Yeah, it was a great weekend of sport. Was delighted to see the Australians get one up on New Zealand. I think, Australia being strong in rugby is really important, and I thought they put together a great performance and some really good young guys coming through for them. Obviously in the GAA, big surprise with Cork getting one up on Kerry, which I'm sure the majority of people in Ireland were happy to see. And then the Dubs kind of rolling on again against Westmeath. A plucky enough Westmeath side, actually, which was a good game. But I suppose for you, Eimear, obviously you would have played a lot of GAA growing up. Did you find playing GAA helped you then when you kind of more focused on rugby going forward?
Yeah, it absolutely did. And there's a lot of girls, I suppose, with women's rugby in Ireland, there wasn't, I suppose, in the past, the underage structures for us to be able to start at a young age. So we depended on other sports, and the majority of the girls on our team, if you do look at them and look across both the 7s and 15s teams, like when I first started off with rugby, the majority of those girls were from, I suppose, Gaelic games, be it camogie or be it football, and I was lucky enough to have played both at inter-county level up until I was 23 and then came into rugby. So yeah, it was the perfect platform for, people know the physical attributes that Gaelic footballers have, and I think it's really important, and there's such a crossover with both Gaelic football and even we saw it at the weekend with Mark Keane in the Cork game. He's obviously an AFL footballer at the moment over in Australia, and his athleticism from Gaelic, he slotted into AFL. So it's not just, us being able to slot into rugby as Gaelic footballers. It's crossover with so many sports, and it's such a professional level from, even as an amateur game, it is still professional essentially in the way that they train and in the way that they recover in that essentially. So I see it in my sister. My sister Ailish plays over in Australia with the Adelaide Crows, so she's fully professional over there and is hoping to go back in the next few weeks. And there's 15 or 16 other Irish girls, so they're ready-made athletes, I suppose. And I suppose more so in the female game we'd see it, but you would have started up with Gaelic football and lots of other sports underage as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, GAA, playing football would have been my main sport through primary school, and it was only really when I went to Blackrock that rugby kind of took over then. But the skills I picked up from Gaelic football 100% stood to me. Even just the basics of how you shape, making it look like you're kicking one way and then you're hooking it over your shoulder, kicking it another way. It's the same way that I try and manipulate the backfield when I'm playing rugby. And I think those one-on-one duels that you have with your marker in Gaelic football or hurling, but it's just that competitiveness really stands to you. And it's similar for me when you're coming up against another out half. You're trying to outskill them and outthink them, and that's such a large part of what Gaelic football is. Are there any other sports that you felt had kind of big contribution factors into,
Yeah, I think I grew up
molding you as a rugby player?
Yeah, I grew up in West Clare, and I think we were just thrown into everything, which was good. I think athletics is a really good one just to develop those fundamentals. And I think as a PE teacher, I see how important those fundamentals are. You're running, catching, throwing, and then they just contribute into so many, or not, contribute into so many different sports, and especially rugby. But I suppose the main one was my Gaelic football ability, and I suppose as a 15er, as a winger, it's those aerial skills like you were saying, and the ability to read a game. I think very often in camogie or football they play like a sweeper system, which prepares you almost for that 15 or that winger, that back three system, depending on what defensive system you play. But as a sweeper in Gaelic football or camogie, you have to be able to read where the ball is going to go before it even gets there, and read where it's going to be. And I think, those are things that you can't learn. Like, you can teach people how to pass and to catch and to tackle. And I think they were the easy things about rugby when I started, was the actual fundamental skills, because I was athletic, I was sporty, I had played different sports growing up. But the hardest part was actually reading and understanding the game. But I think the crossover from Gaelic football and camogie did actually help me in that way as well. Did you play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, probably tennis is probably the other big one I played up to probably about the age of 12. And even
so you could have made it. You could have made it in Wimbledon instead of the Aviva Stadium.
No, I was a bit of a hacker, but I love playing tennis. I love the kind of one-on-one battle of it. And my mum was the one who taught me and my brother Dave and our younger sister Lou how to play. And there was basic stuff like, because it's a one-on-one duel, like your body language and what you're giving off to your opponent is such an important thing. And I definitely carried that across into team sports, whether it's Gaelic football or rugby, that you're always trying to give off the impression that you're in control, whereas internally you mightn't be. And then even, I suppose, figuring out your opponent is such a big part of it. In tennis you could go one set down, but if within that one set that you've lost, you figured out your opponent's weakness, whether it's a weak backhand or they're poor at the net, then you're just going to go after it, and then suddenly you can turn the game around. And I found in my rugby career that's something that has been very prevalent for me. Try and figure out, okay, well, that winger's not good in the air, let's keep putting it up on him, or let's put it in behind him. He doesn't have a good kicking game. Or early on in a match you feel, look, these guys they're a bit soft up front, let's just keep going through the pack. I think that kind of mental process that I would have had as a 9 or 10-year-old on the tennis court trying to figure out my opponent's weaknesses is something that I'm doing now as a 29-year-old on the rugby pitch.
Exactly. And speaking of that athletic ability and that reading of the game, we saw some of that last night, Monday Night Lights, in your game against Glasgow. A good win for Ulster last night. How are you enjoying playing on Monday nights? I know myself as a spectator, I'm loving Monday night rugby because it's just something to do on a bleak Monday evening in November. It's great for us, but as a player, obviously great to get the win. But how is it playing on Monday nights?
Yeah, it's taken a bit of adjusting. Used to Friday or Saturday night games where you're getting the big body of work done on a kind of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the tail end of the week you're kind of gearing up for the game. Whereas for us now, the big sessions are done on Thursday and Friday. Saturday's off, but it doesn't really feel like a Saturday off because you're thinking about the game coming up on Monday, then our captain's runs on the Sunday. So what we've kind of found as a group is we're all losing track of the days. Like, even Dwayne Peel was in giving the pre-match talk and he completely muddled himself on what day the game was even on. But no, you get used to it. What's handy is we've got 4 Monday games in a row. What would have been a bit frustrating would have been if it was Monday back to a Friday game or a Saturday game. You don't kind of get any flow or any routine. But no, it's good. Like, with the scheduling we have here, you kind of get a clear plan of when the hard work's going to be done, when you're going to get your recovery in. So no, it's been working well so far, and it's good that there's rugby on TV most nights.
I know, it is. It's great to watch. I suppose what you're saying there about the clear plan and planning for the season, I suppose unlucky for Connacht and Munster this week. Things didn't go to plan for them in relation to COVID, so both their games were cancelled. So Munster were due to play Benetton, but they had 3 positive and 4 close contacts, and similarly Connacht's second game in a row getting cancelled. Like that, when you do have a season plan and you are so scheduled and you taper off your training because it's match weekend, it must be frustrating for those players. Now, Connacht going into their next game not having played 2 games in a row, while everyone else does get the benefit of having all that game practice.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very disruptive. And I think it's the nature of it as well. So like this week with the game called off, they probably only found out about it midway through the week. Yeah. If it wasn't this week, then even for the game last week, it was probably Thursday or Friday that they found out, look, this game's not going to go ahead. They've still done a full training week.
Yeah.
And then that means that you're not getting any time off. And then when there is scheduled time off, and let's say a week off in December, they're going to have a refixtured schedule, which they're going to have to fit the match in. and you could end up going, 15, 16, 20 weeks in a row where you're training every week, preparing for a game. Now, whether you play a game or not on that given weekend, you've still prepared mentally and physically. And I think over the course of a season, that takes its toll. So, it is definitely a tough hurdle for them to get over, but I'm sure they'll find a way.
Is there room in the schedule for those postponed games? Like, have they purposely left it because of COVID, or were they just weekend off for international games? Or is there room, or is it a pretty jam-packed schedule?
Yeah, I do think there is room. There's definitely a week off in December. I know that, so that would fit in one of the games, and I don't know how they're going to work out the other one. They might have to go, 3 games in 12 days or 10 days and try and fit it in that way. I'm not too sure, but it's certainly not ideal for them.
No, it absolutely isn't. But going back to the Guinness Pro 14 again, 2 wins then out of the other 2 Munster provinces. So obviously Ulster, a great win on Monday night. It was messy. I think the conditions were bad. I think we saw over in Edinburgh as well, really bad conditions last night. But a lot of try scores, some really good things, and you ended up helping for and assisting for one of those tries as well last night.
Yeah, no, it was a good win for us. It's our 5th win in a row. And a bonus point win. We're trying to keep up with Leinster, who are blazing a trail. I think they've got a bonus point in every one of their games and are on 25 points. We're maybe a couple of points behind them on 23, but we're happy with how we're going. I think we're kind of finding good balance in our game between going through teams and going around them. So we're looking to keep that win streak going.
I thought Mike Lowry was excellent. Yeah, really good performance. I thought he was excellent. Yeah. He just pops up everywhere, and he's so agile and impossible to defend. Like, you'd hate to come up against someone like him. Plus, you have to deal with him in training as well. But really played well last night.
Yeah, Mike's quality. He's got, obviously he's one of the smaller guys, and he's got fantastic footwork. And he's one of those guys who you've got to be really careful now about putting a high tackle in on. And he actually got a high tackle on him last night, and I thought the guy was quite lucky not to get yellow carded. He was great for us. I thought John Cooney was brilliant again. His ability to read a game, just probing around the side of mauls and just eyes up. He got another try, just quick thinking off the back of a ruck. And then in the pack, Marcel was brilliant for us again. Sean Reedy picking up another man of the match. So no, look, it was a good performance for us, and I think we're going away now to Zebra on Monday, which they've actually found a bit of form. They possibly could have beaten Scarlets at the weekend. So, playing them away from home is always a tricky fixture. So we'll be ready for that. And then I think, it was a good win for Leinster away to Ospreys. It's, a tricky fixture. And I'm sure you're impressed with some of the Leinster back 3 there.
Yeah, they were excellent. Really, really good. Jamie O'Brien was excellent at fullback. He made some great cover tackles there at the end. And Dave Kearney, of course, getting always really solid and always will pick up a try or 2. I don't think Rob is very happy with the amount of tries he has scored at the moment. I think he said something on Twitter like, stop the count. I think he's overtaken his try tally, not quite sure what exactly it is. But yeah, look, Dave Kearney is always good for 1 or 2 tries a game. And look, they're going to have to start sharing out those player of the games between Sean Reedy, between Rhys Ruddock and down in Munster, Craig Casey. They're not sharing out those player of the game awards. And another man of the match performance for Rhys Ruddock again in the back row.
Yeah, I thought Rhys had a cracking game. He's looking really fit at the moment. Obviously, 1 or 2 niggling injuries last year, which he looks like he's on top of, and he's just a really tough guy to stop. Like, he was running over the Ospreys guys with not, over and over again, really. And I think we're seeing the strength that he offers in the wide channels for Leinster as well. They're getting him out, getting him quality ball. His ability to ball play is a real strength of his game, and looks like he's going to be on for a huge season with Leinster, and hopefully he'll push for honours with Ireland. Yeah,
he's someone that he seems to hang out in the wide channels. Obviously it's happening from set piece and he's meant to be there, but God, as a back 3, he's not someone you want to see running down your channel, but he seems to always find a mismatch in players, and like his strength just dominates them, and he's always good for 10, 15, 20 metres as a result, and picking up man of the match awards, deservedly so. But he really is back in fine form, and another contender for those back 3, which is so competitive at the moment. I suppose going on to the Irish games, the team was just announced today, and that back 3 there, Van der Fleer, O'Mahony and Doris. so strong. And even looking at that, Will Connor's on the bench, CJ Stander isn't there. You know, the strength and depth of the back row, not only on the Irish squad but in the provinces alone, you know, it's something for the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it allows both the provincial coaches and the national coaches the ability to rotate and keep guys fresh and keep it really competitive. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that through the Autumn Nations Cup.
Absolutely. What do you think? Are you excited for the game on Friday night? I suppose it's great to have rugby back and great to have, I suppose, a winter of rugby ahead of us.
Yeah, certainly. You know, I think Wales are definitely going through a bit of a dip at the moment. I think they've lost their last maybe 4 or 5 games in a row. I think we've seen their defence coach step aside, you know, this week. So you'd wonder what's going on, you know, in their camp. Possibly not the most happy place, but they're a side you've got to be very wary of. They're going to be really desperate for a win, and I'm sure they're looking towards this as, you know, a time to kind of consolidate themselves and maybe get a look at some younger players. I'm sure we'll see the likes of Rhys Ruddock come through. 2 of my friends from Bristol are in the squad, Callum Sheedy and Johan Lloyd, so I'd love to see them getting a run. But yeah, look, we know the ability that Wales have. You know, they got to the last 4 of the World Cup. There definitely is the proven form there, and they do have quality players. So Ireland will know that they'll have to be on top of it to get a win at the weekend.
They will, and I suppose the most notable change or addition to the squad is James Lowe receiving his first cap starting on the wing. So he has come in for Conway and Earls has come onto the bench. So some changes in the back three. Glad to see Stockdale starting at 15. It's difficult for a player, you know, to take the stick that he got last weekend and come back, but I think it's a good platform for him to come and, you know, show what he is made of and show what we have seen of him so far. I think Keenan deservedly so keeps his place on the wing. Both his attack and defence is excellent, and I think James Lowe is just what you need to add to that back three. You know, his ball carrying, his left peg, whether it's a clearance kick, whether it's a grubber kick in behind, you know, he has power, pace, and I think he will be a huge addition to the Irish team on Friday night and going forward in the future.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think he's first choice on the left wing yet. Like, you know, I think he's definitely still has a lot of work to do to pass out some of the guys that are there, the likes of Conway, even if Stockdale moved back to the wing, if, you know, someone else played 15. But there's no doubt he offers something different. You know, he's a ferocious ball carrier. We've spoken about his left foot. So no, look, it'll be really interesting to see if he can carry across, you know, the great form that he's had for Leinster over the last few seasons, and see if he can produce it on the international stage. And, you know, I'm sure he will.
You just chatted there about the rotation in the 15 position. What options are there? I suppose Earlsey is more so a winger. Conway has the ability to play 15 with Larmer injured at the moment. You know, who do we think is next in line for that 15 position if Stockdale doesn't actually end up staying there and heading back onto that left wing?
Yeah, I'm sure Hugo Keenan would enjoy a go there as well. It's hard to kind of, you know, suss out the thought process there. You know, he's only really broken onto the scene in the last kind of 18 months, you know, playing for Leinster in the Cup and playing knockout games there, getting his first few caps for Ireland. So I think that's no harm for him, but I'm sure deep down he's probably looking at that going, I'd love to have a go back there myself. And if he keeps playing as well as he is in the wing, I'm sure he will get a go there at some stage. As you said, Conway's, you know, he's a player who's worked a lot in his kicking game. He's one of the best players we have in the air, so he can definitely do a job at fullback. And I don't know if Robbie Henshaw still has, you know, aspirations of playing at the back as well. It's incredibly competitive in the centres now with, you know, Farrell, Gary when he's back fit, Stu McCluskey. You know, if you're talking about getting your best players on the field, would you consider having a look at Robbie at the back? You know, he certainly has all the attributes of a really good 15. So the great news is there's good options there across the board, you know, in the backs, and, you know, they're giving the coaches tough decisions to make.
So I suppose the positive is that there is lots of upcoming games this weekend, and really looking forward to seeing the Irish boys playing on Friday night and in the coming weeks. But unfortunately, World Rugby have announced today that the Women's World Cup qualifiers have been postponed until next year, and also that our final Six Nations game, along with the other 2 Six Nations games, have been postponed. Obviously, England are the clear winners in the Six Nations, so the Six Nations, I think that was to be expected. But disappointing, I suppose, that World Rugby have announced the postponement again. We were due to have 3 games played in December, which unfortunately aren't going ahead right now.
Yeah, so that's very disappointing. I suppose what will that mean for you now? Like, will you guys still be able to go to camp, or is it you just disperse until the new year, or will you be able to train away?
So unfortunately, I have a Bronco test to do in about an hour's time. So
Oh
we are training.
no!
I'm glad to be training. Still very happy to be training. However, training goes on as normal. We have Bronco tests. So this Tuesday just doesn't get any better with news. So look, it's great to still be training and that we still have camps ahead. We still have a Six Nations to plan for. This time last year, we still would have been training away. We had won November International last year. So I suppose similar to last year's schedule, we played 2 games and then we just trained all through Christmas. So they're not cancelled. We still have to try and qualify for the World Cup next summer, or next September and October in New Zealand. So we're due to play Italy, Scotland and the winners of Russia and Spain, who are yet to be played. So I suppose just with the scheduling and just with everything, there isn't a chance for all those games to be played. So I suppose it has come early. The announcement has come early, I suppose, as such. They were due to happen in about 6 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time actually. So disappointing that we don't get any test games. It's been a long year. It's been a long year without rugby. It's been a long year training, but I suppose it'll make us all the more excited to play that Six Nations next year.
Yeah, for sure. I do find it hard when you don't have a specific kind of fixture list and games to aim at to prepare. You kind of need that focus for your training. But at the same time, it gives you, other areas that you can work on, pushing harder, in the gym, or even as I'm sure the coaches are thinking, right, what changes that can we make to catch up with the likes of France and England?
Yeah, exactly. And I know we never got to play that French game, but we had a great performance against Italy and we had a good Six Nations. So we're constantly building and constantly getting better. And it's not just the men, that are thriving and striving for better. We are the same, and we'll be hoping for a better Six Nations next year. And we will use this time to work on our weaknesses. And I suppose it starts tonight with that Bronco and setting the standards so that you know where you're at and, where your fitness is at and where you're at as a squad, and so that your S&C can take a look at it and they can see, where do you need to get to and where do we need to get to as a team to be up with the best in the world against England, against France and the likes. That will prepare us for that World Cup, hopefully in September and October, if we do end up qualifying. So, right, that's great stuff, and that's going to be the end of part 1. So in part 2, we will have Shane Williams coming up.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
So a very warm House of Rugby welcome here to Shane Williams on our show today. Shane, every week we ask our listeners and our followers on social media platforms to ask a question, or do they have any best memories of our special guest. And for that question, the latest inductee into our Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame is Andrew O'Brien. Well done, Andrew. He asked about the longevity of wingers compared to 10 years ago, now compared to 10 years ago. What are your thoughts on that first question from Andrew O'Brien?
Yeah, I think it's not a bad position to play in, really, if you want a longevity in your rugby career, as opposed to a front rower or a back rower. I think you got more chance of playing or staying fit then for a longer period of time. I see myself quite lucky, really, in my rugby career. I did have a few niggly injuries over the years, not too major an injury, I suppose, compared to what some of the lads have had. But I think this day and age, I don't know how long I'd have lasted this day and age, really. 5'6", 76 kilograms soaking wet, compared to the likes of, Semi Radradra, and you look at Caleb Clark and these guys now that are 17, 18 stone. So, yeah, back in the day, I was very lucky. I was one of these guys that if I was hit hard, I usually bounced off the player and got back on my feet and carried on. But some of the impacts you see in this day and age, with the size of the wingers, I wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds, I don't think, in this day and age. So I think I played at the right. What I'm trying to say is I think I played at the right time. You look at the likes of Cheslin Colby and players of that stature now. They have got to be very, very tough because they're batting, they're batting above their average week in, week out. And it is very tough. But, like I said at the start, it's probably the best position to play in if you want to keep playing for a while. I'm very lucky in that respect. I was never going to play in the front row, let's be honest, or the back row. So I think I played in the right position in the end.
Yeah, I think for me, like in the last 10 years, we've seen the game. There was obviously a massive influence on bulk and bigger players. But I think it's actually come full circle now. And I think teams are beginning to find a balance between having, strong ball carriers, but also having the balance of having good ball players and agile players. You can see that with the likes of Damien McKenzie with the All Blacks, and even for us in Ulster, Mike Lowry's probably only about 75 kilos, and he's kind of playing that second distributor role and a really hard guy to tackle.
Yeah, I think as well. It's and you got to look at the tackle laws and everything now as well. Sometimes I'm thinking, I'm watching a game and I'm seeing high tackles going in there, and the guys are still ducking down to go for the tackle, if you know what I mean. And I'm thinking, God, if I was playing now, every time anyone tackled me, they probably would have high tackled me every time because, it's such a low center of gravity, like say Lowry and likes of Cheslin Colby and these guys, McKenzie, who just have a go. They're so low to the ground. They're so strong, and powerful as well, that some of these guys have a field day, and defenders are petrified of them, which is great, because otherwise, if you're just running head on into these defenses all day long, the defenses are just going to absolutely own you. And I think you're seeing a lot more now as well of even bigger forwards, back rows especially, they're using footwork and looking for shoulders rather than running head on and trying to take on defenders that way, because it's an arm wrestle. You do that all day long, and it's going to take its toll on your body. I'm talking about players, some of the best in the world. Adi Sevilla, who's one of the most ferocious ball carriers in world rugby, but the feet on him is just incredible, and he has a go, takes them on the outside, and I think that's probably going to save him about 2 or 3 years in his rugby career, through injuries, I think. And I think the world of rugby is changing slightly for the better.
Shane, we had Nigel Owens on last week, and we discussed a few of the different law changes that you might look to see. Well, I suppose you have a connection with Concussion, and your documentary that you recently came out on BBC, you chatted about the concussion and the impact of concussion as a player. And I suppose both myself and Ian, I don't think there's many rugby players that have managed to escape a concussion at some stage. But have those law changes in relation to concussion, helped, I suppose, the longevity of not just wingers but players in general, and how important are those law changes for the safety of players and for the longevity of our careers?
I think it's really important. Obviously, I wouldn't have done the documentary if I didn't believe in it and I didn't feel strongly about it. One of the reasons I did it is because I've had my bumps over the years, trust me, and you often worry when your family members that have suffered from dementia or other injuries through other illnesses, etc., through trauma and head injuries. I've also got a young son that plays the game, so I was more so wanted to know about the impact and what it can do to your body, really. So I'm so glad I did it. But I think we are certainly we see a lot of players that are more focused on not tackling high. I know we still do have high tackles, but that is because the law has changed. I don't think the players are more malice now and try and injure players. It's just shoulders slipping up and catching players in the face, rather than just hitting them flat out in the head like it used to be. It was no holds barred even 10 years ago, probably, And I used to bounce around that rugby field like a bouncy ball, but now there is more of a focus on keeping our players safe. The breakdown area is refereed very closely. If a player's off his feet, the whistle goes straight away. No one's hitting rucks with their shoulders anymore or their heads. They're not aiming for players in the face or the head either, because it's an instant card, red card. So I think we are doing the right thing. HIA's, head injury assessments, where players have to go off even from the slightest bumps. It doesn't. When you watch it on telly and you think, well, why is he going off? That's only a small bump. You don't have to have a big bump on the head to have a concussion. In fact, you don't have to take a massive impact on the head. You can have concussion from whiplash or from being hit in another part of your body. And people don't realise that. But it's so important to make sure that we've got our players safe and that they're able to pass a HIA and come back on the field sooner rather than later. And the protocols of, if you have a concussion, being off for a certain amount of weeks is so important as well, because everyone used to say, a concussion is where you have a bang in the head, you feel sick, you throw up, and then you're fine the next day. You're not fine the next day. Sorry, this takes weeks and weeks and weeks to get over. And the more we kind of stress that, and the more science and the more testing we do, the more we're going to find out, right, okay, we are actually looking after our players and the well-being of those around us. So I think we're going in the right direction. I know a lot of people moan about the laws and that there's no way that was a red, there's no way that was a yellow, but you've got to put laws in, or people are just going to, do what they want, really. So I think we're going in the right direction.
I think that's a really good point on the laws. Like we saw from the Bledisloe Cup there at the weekend, there's no black and white now. They're both clear red cards, goes to the TMO, and the players are sent off. But that has a big knock-on effect because off the back of that, coaches are now coaching their players going, look, we can't afford to have a red card. The chances are we're probably going to lose the game. So you're then doing more work on tackle technique, getting the tackle height lower. It has a big knock-on effect in the game. And we'll see probably in 12 months' time. I know there's been a lot of red cards in the last probably 3 or 4 months with this kind of clear directive from referees. But usually the way the trend goes, in 12 months' time, we probably won't see as many high tackles or as many red cards, and hopefully not as many concussions.
In relation to the concussion, going back again, like what you said there, Shane, about we have to take the time to actually let your body heal. But I think as players, it's a difficult one because you don't have crutches. You're not, you can run fine apart from feeling a little bit off. It's difficult to see. And as a player, I think it's difficult to take because you're not visibly injured. And I think as players, we all are very impatient when it comes to injuries. And I think in concussion quite a bit as well. But the return to play protocol is super, super important, especially, there's a lot of study done on it and the long-term effects of concussions and, dementia. And we've seen it not just in rugby, but in American football. And there's quite a lot of documentaries about the effects of concussion at the moment. Shane, you have a different type of training schedule. You seem to be running miles and miles for November. You're running it for a very 465 miles, in fact, for the month of November. How different is your training schedule now to when you were a professional rugby player?
Yeah, it's probably worse now. I've obviously during lockdown, it's been a very difficult time for everyone, of course, and a lot of the charities that I'm ambassador for, or I support throughout the years, I've struggled as well with funding and getting money in for events. And I think there's about 3 or 4 events this year that I was meant to do for charity that I couldn't do. So basically, I was unable to raise those funds. And I did a bike ride back at the start of lockdown. Did nearly 800 miles there in my garage on my own for the charity, which was great. Raised a bit of money. I did virtual London Marathon a couple of weeks back as well for another charity. And during the month of November, I stupidly accepted a challenge, which, not stupidly, obviously, but a challenge that I didn't know if I was going to be able to complete. And that was basically running a mile on day 1, 2 miles on day 2, etc., all the way up to the end of this month. And I think it equates to about 465 miles. So I'm on mile, I'm trying to think what I did today. I can't remember what day it is. Day 12. So I've done 12 miles today. And I'm over 70 miles so far in that 12 days. So it's completely out of my comfort zone because, when I was playing rugby, I was a sprinter. I didn't have to run over 40 meters, and very rarely have to run over 40 meters in a game. So this is tough. I got my compression tights on my calves at the moment. My legs, and I don't think I even did that when I was playing. So I am in bits at the moment. I got toenails falling off, and the problem is I've got nearly 400 miles to go this month. So I've probably bitten off more than I can chew, but I'll give it a good go. It's for charities, for Velindre Cancer Centre, and hopefully we can raise a lot of money for a great cause.
Shane, you're a good man for taking on these random challenges. You took part in the GAA's toughest trade a few years back, and I don't think there actually could have been worse weather for you to take part in. I remember seeing a video of you bounce the ball, and it bounced about 4 times before it came back up to your hand. And I was like, did nobody tell him that you're never supposed to bounce the ball when the weather is bad? The little tricks that we all know as GAA players.
Yeah, it was a crash course in GAA. I think. I obviously never played the sport, knew very little about it. I know how big a sport it is in Ireland, and when I was asked to do it, I was really excited about it because I thought, right, okay, so do something that, again, out of my comfort zone. I've never played the game, but I've played a bit of soccer. I've obviously played rugby. How difficult can this be? And I turned up to Glen Swilly and down in Donegal there, and I thought Wales has bad weather. It was just ridiculous. I was free. I've never been so cold in all my life. But it was a great experience. No, the people were lovely in the town there. They really took me in, and I spent a week there training with them, and we had an evening of a talent show there as well. So went there, had a few beers with the lads, and it was great. And I remember match day. I got up in the morning. I thought, actually, it's quite a nice day today. With this, the weather's been kind, and we've got a game, so this'll be lovely. So we travelled to the game, and it was obviously a local derby, and it was a friendly match. And I went into the changing rooms, and the weather was lovely. Honestly, it was absolutely lovely. It was late at night though, but it was fresh, it was crisp, it was great. I opened the doors to come out for the game, and it was snowing sideways. I have never experienced anything like it in my life. We couldn't even see the pitch because of the snow, and it was just the most crazy experience I've ever had in my life. I didn't know where I was really meant to be. I was running around like a blue-ass fly. The guy next to me was just having a field day because I was doing all this running. He was staying in the same spot, and every time I was getting the ball, I was catching it and competing against him, and he was just barging me all over this pitch. And I was like, Jesus, I have probably never covered so much field in all my life, but it was great. We had a lovely crowd come out and watch it. Well, try and watch us. They couldn't see the game because it was honestly a whitewash. I've seen nothing like it in my life. Had a couple of points there, scored a couple of goals and whatnot, and I loved it. It was great, But will I be going back to Glenswilly to play? I doubt it ever. But they were lovely.
That's a great experience, a really good experience. I suppose we might as well get on to the rugby side of things. You've been on 3 Lions tests, a great achievement. I suppose at the upcoming Lions test next year, who are you hoping to see there? What players have impressed you so far this season that you would hope to be on that British and Irish Lions tour?
It's open, isn't it? There's certainly a lot of players that are playing at the moment that are playing with form. The thing about rugby and a Lions tour is that you could on the weekend now we could see the likes of James Lowe just light it up against Wales, score a hat-trick, and be the next best thing. We got Stockdale starting to play well as well, who I'm a big fan of at 15, which makes gives another option there. Stuart Hogg, I'm a big fan of Hoggy, but he's never played in a test as well. That's the power of the Lions. It doesn't really matter how you play well this weekend. The Lions tour isn't until next summer, and hopefully it's next summer. So I think we see a lot of chop and change over the years now, over the year until the tour comes along. But I'm really looking forward to it. We've got a lot of strong contenders for this tour. We're playing the world champions. British and Irish Isles. We've got some fantastic talent coming through. It's not looking particularly well for Wales at the moment. However, hopefully, in 12 months' time there'll be a change of fortunes and we can see some really good players coming through. Lewis Rhys-Ruddock for Gloucester and Wales is one I want to see get involved a lot more in this Welsh team, especially now that it's not going particularly well. It's almost a throw with the dice, get him in there, see what he's got, kind of attitude I think they need.
Certainly he's one of those players with that kind of raw pace. He's got that X factor. We've seen glimpses of it with Gloucester, and I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't be able to see it on the international stage.
No, not at all. And I did a podcast about a month ago, and he came on, and I obviously knew a lot about him, and I'd watched a couple of games in the Premiership, but I liked his attitude as well. He was in the Six Nations squad, didn't play a second of rugby. For a young man, you could very easily have, lost patience, thrown your toys out the pram and thought, well, I should be playing. He wasn't, he was very patient. He said, look, when I get my chance, I'll take my chance and I'll show everyone what I can do. And I really loved that about him. He deserves a chance now to start, I think. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play for Wales, and then who knows next year? There could be a lot of players we haven't even heard of yet that could be in that team.
Yeah, so Wales seem to be a team in transition, and I actually, as a player, I don't like that that phrase, but there's a lot of changes. You know, they were Grand Slam winners in 2019, and very poor season on their own standards this year. Their defence coach Byron Hayward has just left this week. You know, it's not a great start going into. I know they're not official test games, but, you know, every game is a game and they're still important and you still want to win and have a good performance at the weekend. But it's not an ideal situation, I suppose, coming into these games.
No, it's an awful situation, isn't it? You know, they're on a losing streak as well, which puts stress on the coaches and the players. And yeah, but you know, obviously Sam Warburton had left at the start as well of the autumn games, and you know, it's just not a happy camp, isn't it? And you feel for Byron Hayward because he is a good coach. He did the business with the Scarlets. You know, he's a very proud guy, and he probably took the performances and the results very personal as well. So, and that's probably why he's walked. And you know, you've got to feel for him on that side. But what that does do, it kind of it kind of leaves a bitter taste in the atmosphere. Certainly, you can feel it in Wales at the moment because, you know, it's who do we look to now to change things, and who we should be looking at to change things is the team. And I was there to see them play in Llanelli against Scotland, and it was just so uncharacteristic of Wales the way they played. They were dominated by Scotland in the breakdown. You know, their kicking game was quite poor. The kick chase game was poor. They didn't have much direction behind the scrums and the lineouts and the breakdowns as well. And you know, from kick-off, I just couldn't see Wales winning that game. And I probably never said that about Wales versus Scotland before. So, yeah, they're in a sticky situation at the moment, but only the players can get them out of it. And I'm hoping that, you know, this can spur them on. It can kind of kickstart them again, or give them a kick up the backside, which is what they need at the moment. And they can prove a lot of people wrong, because, you know, it's always difficult when you're on a losing streak like this, that you get stuck in a rut. And I just hope that's not the case, because we got a lot of important rugby coming up.
Yeah, I think for me, Shane, like obviously when players are coming in from the Welsh regions and, you know, they're buzzing after, you know, beating one of the Irish provinces or beating one of the Scottish teams or Italian teams, it definitely helps. You know, if you've got, you know, guys coming in from the Scarlets, the Ospreys, Cardiff, all having won games, that kind of creates a buzz itself within camp. Obviously, you're part of the Ospreys team that won the league in 2010, and you scored a fantastic try to break Leinster's hearts in 2012. And then we saw, obviously, Scarlets won the league in 2017. You know, what do you think the WRU needs to do to get the Welsh unions, kind of with the Welsh teams backfiring and, you know, really competing in the Guinness Pro 14?
Yeah, it's a great question, and like you said, you mentioned, you know, when teams are doing well in international, they go back to their clubs. It normally spurs the clubs on, and happened to us Ospreys in 2008, where we won the Grand Slam with Wales. We went back and played. We had 14 players in you know, the starting team there from the Ospreys. We went back and playing for your club then was easy, because, you know, it wasn't the intensity of the internationals, and we'd done really well. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I think I think now we are comparing ourselves to, you know, the Irish provinces and the regions, and you look at Leinster, for example. They just seem to be just pulling these boys off the conveyor belt, the Byrne brothers and whomever it is. They just seem to be coming off with such talent and making it easier for the club. At the moment, I think it's strength in depth is the problem in the regions. You know, you look at the Ospreys, as soon as they lose the likes of Alwyn Jones, Webb and Tipperick, it is an uphill struggle. You know, I'm not sure if we have, you know, the comfort and the players coming through that the Irish provinces do, for example. We certainly don't have the talent pool of boys that could come in and play for the region and then just get called up into the national team, which happens a lot in Ireland. So that says a lot about the quality of the players you guys are bringing through there. We don't have that. And I certainly witnessed it. On the weekend, I did the Ospreys against Leinster. A lot of new faces in that Leinster team. You know, you had Harry Byrne starting at 10, Ross's brother, and you're thinking, well, no one's really seen this guy play. Let's see what he's got. And all of a sudden, you're thinking, Jesus, this just isn't fair. You know, they're rolling these guys off, and they could all very easily be in the national team. It's frightening, but when you compare it to what Ospreys had then as well, and I don't mean it disrespectful to them, there was a lot of players there that were thrown in at the deep end, and I don't know if you can do that against a team like Leinster. So there's definitely a massive void there at the moment. There certainly needs to be something sorted in the recruitment of players and how the academies are working, and how they look at introducing them into the the regional side. So a lot of work to do, and then especially when your national team isn't doing particularly well as well, it is very difficult, and people are pointing fingers. So a lot of work. I don't think just throwing money at a club or regions is always the answer. But it's just running your business clever as well. And I think again what the likes of Munster and Ulster and Leinster and Connacht do is they invest very well in the players that they bring in. James Lowe, for example, was a player I knew a little bit about because I'd seen him for the Chiefs and the Maoris, but then he comes into the Leinster team and he's just a revelation. He's a breath of fresh air. He plays a lot of rugby for them. Next thing you know, he's in the national team. And you look at players that Leinster have had over the years, Pony, Nasewa, Brad Thorne, these guys, Rocky Elson, etc. They just fit in and do the business, and the players learn around them. And we did that at a time for Ospreys when we had the likes of Justin Marshall, Marty Haller, Tommy Bowe was over there as well, working with the youngsters. We just don't seem to have that at the moment, and we're getting left behind by the other promises.
Yeah, just like obviously important to be bringing through your own players, but also I think as well holding on to the talent that you have. If you had the likes of Dan Bigger playing with the Ospreys, or even Callum Sheedy, Owen Lloyd have both been called up to the Welsh squad, but they're playing with Bristol. Rhys Ruddock with Gloucester. They're 4 or 5 guys there that if you have them filtering back into those Welsh regions, they're probably 10-15% better with even just that kind of premium quality of player.
Yeah, and that's what the regions are trying to do, I think. And then when you get those players back, and you got likes of Sheedy and Rhys Ruddock ripping it up for the clubs, then you get bums on seats, don't you? That's exactly it, I think. But there's a flip side to that as well. You look at the Gallagher Premiership and the quality of rugby that gets played there. It probably made the likes of Sheedy and Rhys Ruddock how they've been playing this year. They've been playing competitive rugby for the last 2 seasons. The likes of Sheedy winning the Challenge Cup, with playing with Bristol, and Rhys Ruddock doing really well with Gloucester, and that gives you confidence. And then you bring that to the national team. Whereas, would they have been that confident if the region would have got them back into the country, kind of thing? And Dan Bigger as well. Dan Bigger is playing his rugby in Gloucester, in Northampton, and he's absolutely loving his time up there. So it is a tough one, of course. As a ex-player and as someone who's following the regions now, we want all our talent back in Wales because we want to watch them ourselves, and we want to bring the crowds back to these regions as well, because that's another quite sour point that you're getting about 1,100 people. Well, you're not getting any at the moment, but you're getting 1,100 people normally to come to the Liberty Stadium to watch their team play, and you can get 20 odd thousand in there. So it is hard. We're in a bit of a mess at the moment, certainly, and regional and as a country at the moment.
I suppose the good thing, Shane, is that these autumn nation games give all these teams, and especially Wales, an opportunity to prove themselves or to get better, and even Ireland themselves. Johnny spoke during the week about how he's just looking for improvement and a better performance on I suppose their English performance in Twickenham and their game against France last weekend. Shane, thank you so much for your rugby insight. However, we have one more thing for you. We have a game here on the show called Taller, Shorter, Bigger, Smaller. It's a pretty simple game to play. We will show you 2 rugby players, and then we will ask you which one is taller and which one is shorter. So that's their height. And then we will ask you which one is bigger and which one is smaller. So that's based on their weight. Shane, we will give you an example here to ease you into it. The first image is going to come up on your screen here, and we want to know who is bigger and who is smaller. So your images here is between Shane Williams and Ryan Jones. So it's yourself and your old Wales teammate Ryan Jones. As a gentle opener, who is taller and who is shorter?
Well, I actually ran with Ryan today, so I was reminded that I am much shorter and he is taller.
According to Wikipedia, Ryan Jones is 6'5", while Shane, you are listed at 5'7". Is that the correct size?
Well, I'm actually 5'6", but I used to say 5'7" on my program, so that's all right. That's okay. I'm happy with that.
We'll go with that.
We all do that, Shane.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. And now it's going to get a little bit harder. So we're going to keep going, Shane, until you get one wrong. So we'll add up your score at the end. So we had Sean Cronin on the first week and he got 3, so he's on top of the leaderboard. And we had Nigel Owens last week who only got 1. So really you only have to get 2 to beat Nigel and hopefully 3 to beat Sean Cronin.
Right, okay.
So first up, we have Nigel Owens or we have Steve Walsh. And we want to know which one is shorter this time.
I would say Nige is shorter.
So Steve Walsh is 6'2", while Nigel is 5'10". So that is 2 out of 2 for you. This is a good start.
Yeah.
Already beating Nigel on the leaderboard here, Shane.
There you are. No, Steve Walsh is a blast from the past.
Well, there you go. So we're going to go international here. Here's South African prop Ox and Shay and French star Jefferson Poirot. Who is bigger and who is smaller?
Oh my God, they're both massive, aren't they? I will say Poirot is smaller.
So, while Ox NJ is 251 pounds, just under 18 stone, Poirot comes in at 271 pounds and he is definitely bigger.
Jeez, well, yeah.
So
it depends what
it's quite tall,
had a Sunday
Poirot.
lunch, doesn't it, with them too? Yeah, so I beaten Nigel though, that's the main thing.
You did. You beat Nigel, so you're now second on our leaderboard at the moment. So you can say that to Nigel now the next time that you see him. Okay, cheers to everybody for watching and listening. A big, huge thank you to producer Pat, Paul, Dermot, Ian, Anthony, and everyone that helped getting this show together. And of course, our amazing guest, Shane Williams. This has been House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness. Slongful.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.